I'm here today to stand with our community seniors and our veterans, our disabled community, people whose very lives and livelihoods are directly impacted right now by Elon Musk and Donald Trump's attempt to make lives more expensive. Now, before I get into my talking points, I want to introduce two special guests today who I just met myself. A Gio, who's 72 years old, who's thinking about applying for Social Security but worried that the system is becoming too complicated or worse, that it might be gone altogether. And Lincoln, who's a veteran and current Social Security recipient, who's deeply concerned that this program is being essentially dismantled before our eyes.
We found out National Security Advisor Mike Waltz created more unsecured group chats to discuss sensitive information, a huge security risk. Along with Intel Committee Democrats, I called for an independent probe into Signalgate. Next, Trump tried to brand his dumb tariffs as Liberation Day. But let's call it what it is: National Sales Tax Day or National Recession Day.
Just left the Senate floor where Senator Cory Booker has been standing up for the American people, standing up for our republic in a filibuster since last night. And it was incredible, is all I can say. As I walked into the Senate chamber and heard him quoting Frederick Douglass, talking about how did we get here, not only how did we get to a place where he could be a member of the Senate and I could be a member of the House, but how did we get to this place where Donald Trump and his administration are unraveling the very fabric of our republic.
So what you now have are these countries and these companies coming back to the table, say, you know what, we want to have a new trade deal with your country. We want access to your markets. We want access to your capital. We know it's the greatest economy in the world. And so we have the opportunity to bring those jobs back. And in the meantime, we have the opportunity to decouple from China.
My team woke up this morning and they were using words like tragedy, scared, disappointed, disgusted by the fact that they can absolutely see the writing on the wall, which is that if something doesn't happen about this tariff situation, the financial burden on my small business means that we won't have either some or all of these jobs, or we may very realistically have to close as a company.
Su reacción a lo que está ocurriendo hoy, los mercados desplomados, se anticipa una crisis financiera. La Stellantis, fabricante de Dodge y de Jeep, anuncia la suspensión de 900 empleados. Una situación compleja.
Es muy compleja. Mira, los aranceles es algo que puedes usar como un gobierno para arreglar problemas que tienes en comercio con otros países. Pero cuando usas esta manera que usó este presidente para hacer aranceles en todo el mundo, vas a traer muchos problemas con el consumidor, con Wall Street, y también va en tiempo también al mismo tiempo va a aumentar los precios a las familias de los Estados Unidos, los consumidores también.
Cuando usted llegó al Senado,
it was just 2019 when Donald Trump, as president, signed the Women's Entrepreneurship and Economic Empowerment Act, which required USAID to consider how their projects affect women and girls. And he actually said, by investing in women around the world, we're investing in families, we're investing in prosperity, and we're investing in peace.
Every American deserves access to high-quality, medically accurate, non-judgmental reproductive health care.
Abortion rights supporters rallied outside the Supreme Court ahead of today's hearing. The justices are looking at whether South Carolina can prevent Planned Parenthood from participating in Medicaid. South Carolina has tried to bar the organization from the state's Medicaid program because it provides abortions. But this case doesn't directly deal with abortion, since federal and state law already bars Medicaid from paying for the procedure. Instead, the High Court will weigh whether people can sue in order to pick the qualified health care provider of their choice.
And I am here to echo the commander of the Veterans of Foreign Wars when he asked us in one of our hearings, stop the bleeding, stop the bleeding. In our services to veterans through PACT Act care and benefits, in our VA hospitals around the country, in veterans crisis lines, in programs to keep them in their homes. Stop the bleeding.
I have my own story. Nobody in my family went to college. It was a second grade teacher, Mrs. Lee, who scooped me up and whispered in my ear that I was special and that I could be a public school teacher. And at that moment, my entire life changed. For all the rest of my growing up years, whenever someone asked me anything about my future or what I was interested in, I would stand a little taller and say, I'm going to be a teacher. It guided my entire life.
And so when you have real examples of what happens when we come together, when we work hard, when we seek to amplify our message and our values, people can rally around that. So that's sort of the message here of this week, is we have to give people something to work towards.
When you give corporations those enormous tax cuts, it does not trickle down to everybody else. It stays in the pockets of the wealthy. The corporations use it in order to do stock buybacks, in order to inflate CEO salaries. It just separates the rich from the poor. It is a scam. So I gave that speech on the floor in February. And 2 months later, the moment is here.
This budget would give massive tax cuts to the ultra-wealthy and pay for it by raising costs, taking away health care, threatening the economic security of tens of millions of Americans. It is a major handout to the wealthy. If you don't know what the numbers are, here's a great one to remember. It would give Elon Musk a $50 million tax break over the next 10 years. Do we really think he needs that? Does he need $10 million more? He does not. You could literally structure this budget so that you are not reducing taxes or giving special deals to people making over $400,000 a year. You could do that. But that's not what this is. It went the opposite. It gives the wealthiest 0.1% an average tax cut of $180,000 a year. In total, over the next 30 years, it would spend $25 trillion on tax cuts for the wealthy and the big corporations. Meanwhile, what's happening to people's grocery prices? What's happening to their health care prices? What's happening to their housing prices? This isn't speculation. This is a plan to cut Medicaid. That's why we have a different vision. You could do a budget, and I see Ron Wyden is here, the highest ranking Democrat on the Finance Committee. He knows what we could do if they would work with us. We could do a budget that would lower costs, not raise them.
Republicans' budget resolution doesn't just accept, it actually doubles down on what Trump and Musk are doing. And it's not about balancing the budget. We all know that, because they don't plan to reverse one of the biggest drivers of the debt, Republican tax cuts. Despite all the bogeymen that Republicans like to point to as driving the national debt, the reality is that the single biggest driver of our national debt since 2001 has been Republican tax cuts.
Middle-class Americans will pay for Republicans' billionaire tax cuts, and the cost will be measured in shuttered family farms, families and kids kicked off Medicaid, losing their health care, and veterans losing out on hard-earned benefits.